first panelist is David Lemieux. David has been a member of Chicago's activist community for over 40 years. At the age 16 in 1969, he was the second youngest member of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. David was not an actor when given the opportunity by Sam to appear at age 19 in The Spook Who Sat by the Door. In 1982, David began a 26-year career with the Chicago Police Department, where he used his position and authority as a vehicle to serve the people. David was the subject of a short film called From Black Panther to Homicide Cop, which was produced and directed by DuSable Museum's own Pamon Rami and Masekwa Myers. Currently, David gives seminars facilitated by the Black Star Project entitled Keeping Our Children Out of the Just Us System. He's still active with the Illinois Black Panther Party History Project and other efforts committed to preserving our true history and the continuation of our struggle. Our next panelist is already on stage, and he's spoken to you but hasn't given himself a proper introduction, Pamon Rami. He's the DuSable Museum's Director of Educational Services and Public Programs, and he's a legendary theater director, film producer, arts administrator, and cultural icon. Since the late 1960s, he's been involved in the development of television productions, films, music concerts, documentaries, plays, and multimedia. Since 2003, Pamon has provided consultation in multimedia and held the position of Chief Technical Officer for Masekwa Myers and Associates. In 2004, after returning to Chicago from Los Angeles, he and his wife and creative business partner of 36 years, Masekwa Myers, have directly mentored over 500 teen apprentices and indirectly mentored thousands across the Chicagoland area through live performances and their weekly Teen Talk radio theater broadcasts. In addition, they've created numerous films directed at teen issues. As the first African-American film casting director in Chicago, Pamon provided talent for such classic films as The Blues Brothers, Mahogany, Cooley High, and The Spook Who Sat by the Door. He recently produced the feature film of Boys and Men in 2011, starring Angela Bassett, Robert Townsend, and Victoria Rowell. Mr. Rami is also an Illinois Humanities Council 2013 Rhodes Scholar. And our third panelist is Jacqueline Stewart. Jacqueline is an associate professor in the departments of radio, television, film, and African American Studies at Northwestern University, and she received her PhD from the University of Chicago. Her research and teaching focus on African American film, literature, moving image archiving and preservation, and Chicago media history. She's the author of the book Migrating to the Movies, Cinema and Black Urban Modernity, and her essays have appeared in numerous journals. Stewart directs the Southside Home Movie Project and is the co-curator of the LA Rebellion Preservation Project at UCLA Film and Television Archive. She's currently researching the history of Black moving image preservation and completing a study of the life and work of African-American actor, writer, and director Spencer Williams. Her other research interests include the history and theory of film exhibition and spectatorship and quote-unquote orphan media, which means non-commercial and other marginalized film and video works in need of preservation, from home movies to cable access television programs. And finally, I'd like to bring to the stage our moderator for this afternoon, George Blaze. George is a multimedia producer, television personality, accomplished composer, and musician. His work in television, commercial production, and public service campaign writing has earned him 3 Chicago Emmys, 2 national tellies, and a National Community Broadcasters Award. He is the host of WCIU's 26 North Halsted and Chicago Now. And I'm going to turn the mic over to George for the panel.
All right. You know, it's interesting. About 7 or 8 years ago, I had the privilege of being a co-producer of a film series called Patchworks that we used to do at the Hot House Center for International Performance and Exhibition. And one of the films that we did was The Spook Who Sat by the Door. And it's just kind of interesting how years later I'm back here on the panel discussing this film one more time. So, you know, despite the fact that I never got rich in television, I know I'm doing something right. My first question is for Mr. Greenlee himself. The Spook Who Sat by the Door is the first black financed major motion picture. I wonder if you could speak a little bit about what that process was like and how it was to get this film actually together.
That's not true. There was a thriving black film industry. It lasted for decades. It died out, and what you say is true when I made it. But I grew up watching black financed, produced, directed, and acted. Oscar Micheaux, as you know, produced more than 50 films right here in Chicago. It's strange that we don't know about what we used to do. Now, there was a film theater not far from where I grew up called the NRA. And it was owned by a tiny Jewish progressive. Now, on Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday, he would screen Hollywood films, okay? Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, he screened black films. So I grew up watching the black films. So it never occurred to me that I would have to go to Hollywood to do what my heroes had done. Now, I haven't wanted a Hollywood production. I said, okay, do it if you can. In the meantime, I got in touch with a former classmate who had become a consultant. He had consulted with, anyway, he was a business expert. I told him what I wanted. He drew up a limited partnership agreement. I wrote a proposal. I came and sat down and said, man, it turned me down. I said, what the hell did you expect, man? So I gave him the proposal, and we went out and raised $850,000, primarily from black investors. Don't tell me that black people don't support. I wouldn't be here without the support of Pay Moon. I wouldn't have made the film without the support of black people. I wouldn't be the highly educated man with no attempt at false modesty without the support of my family and community. I love black people.
We love you too, Sam. Ms. Stewart, in terms of looking at a contemporary context of the importance of this film, it's 40 years down the road, and Sam's talking about putting that film together, and yet here we are in 2013, and from what I understand, there are people out there trying to put together money, perhaps to do a film about Toussaint Louverture and the revolution in Haiti, who can't seem to get the backing and the funding, and yet a white director like Quentin Tarantino can do Django Unchained. There are still many issues in the film industry. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the importance of this Spook who sat by the door in this context of what's going on in film today.
No, it's a great question. And first of all, I just want to say thank you. It's really an honor to be here, part of this celebration and part of this conversation. So I'll be brief so we can get to you guys' questions. I know you probably have many. I think that one of the issues that Mr. Greenlee was just talking about in terms of trying to get black support to create black authored films, black financed films, continues to be a huge struggle. And it's not a question of a lack of support that the community has, but it has to do with the structures of how to get films made. I mean, one of the most important aspects of the history of this film is that it was suppressed for many years. It got theatrical distribution, and then it disappeared from the theaters, and I don't think it's too surprising why that happened in terms of the content of the film. There's a really good documentary that was made about the making of the Spook Who Sat by the Door called Infiltrating Hollywood, and I think it was on TV just a couple of days ago. If you have a chance to see it, it was made by Christine Acom. And one of the things, Mr. Greenlee is in the film and talks quite a bit about the making of the film, and one of the things that's pointed out there is that it was extremely difficult to make a thoughtful film like this in an era that we now think of as the so-called blaxploitation era. So one of the things that and Mr. Greenlee can fill us in on this, but they sort of passed it off to the distributor as if it was one of these action films, right? As if it was like Shaft or Superfly or something like that. And I think that contemporary black filmmakers, just like contemporary black musicians and other artists, continue to have to try to present their work as if it's doing something that it really isn't intended to do in order to get the backing that it needs to get large audiences. So it's so important that this film is being seen by people now, because now we can appreciate what the messages that he was trying to convey that audiences didn't really get a chance to see at the time. So.
Thank you. Mr. Lemieux, in terms of your context as a veteran of law enforcement, it has to be particularly poignant of the headlines today. Within just the last week, we had a situation where a highly trained, decorated LAPD officer from the manifesto I read highlighted a lot of the issues that were going on in the department, decided to wage war against the LAPD, and there are many parallels between that situation and what went on in this film. I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on how current events are play out in great film and great work like this.
First of all, if anyone read the manifesto that he wrote, other than his personal musings about particular things, everything he said about the police is true. They're not our friends. That system that they represent is not our friends. It wasn't our friends in 1972, 1952, 1942, 1932, 1832, 1732, 16, and it is what it is, okay? As far as what he did, anytime a black man exhibits that sort of rage, they act like they're shocked. I'm shocked that it doesn't happen more often, okay? It's either a testimony to our intestinal fortitude or to our cowardice that it doesn't happen more often. And I'm not saying that, I'm saying it's something to reflect on, okay? Every day we suffer some sort of indignity that the only just response would be to probably take someone's head off. And as all the men and women in this audience can attest to, with the responsibilities that we have to take care of our families, our children, our loved ones, we have to bite our tongue, we have to draw ourselves in, and we have to function. But don't think that resistance just started back with the making of this film or with what that brother did. There will always be people who will just get tired.
Mr. Rami, in terms of, you were the casting director on this film, tell me a little bit about the rest of the crew in putting this together. Who were the people? What was the makeup? What was the demographic of your filmmaking crew?
First of all, Sam and Ivan both were ahead of their time in terms of their commitment to making this project. A lot of times today, people talk about the fact that violence that appears in television and video games doesn't have an impact on people, which is why a lot of times they continue to have the impact that they have on young people. But when it came to this film, the assumption was that the film would have an impact on people, which is why they snatched it and wouldn't allow people to see it.